Welcome to the 2025 STEM Career Panel for the Central New Mexico STEM Research Challenge. This year, we are super excited to have New Mexico Donor Services folks with us. And we're going to have I'm sure, lively conversation. They are a very busy organization that right now is a little less than fully staffed. And so we're a small crew, but Luis is actually going to share in a little bit about some of the roles of people that weren't able to make the recording today, so that you do have an idea of all of the kind of roles that are played in donor services. So what I'd like you guys to do, and I'll call on you, but if you can introduce yourself, your name, your educational background, um, your current title or role, and then two other things: the most fascinating and interesting thing you've learned in your field, and three words that you would use to describe your own personal career journey. So I'm going to start. Nat, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first.
Um, okay. I am Nat Rivera, and I am the Quality and Compliance Manager for New Mexico Donor Services. We do all of the organ and tissue donation in New Mexico, and soon to do eye donations as well, optical corneal transplants. That's upcoming in this year or early 2026. I went to school and was pre-dental. I wanted to go to dental school. And so I knew that I wanted to be in one of the sciences. And so it was actually environmental science, but the university I went to discontinued the environmental science degree as I was going through. And so I actually ended up with a Bachelor of Arts in communication studies, but big STEM background prior to that point, prior to the left turn I took. I would say that the most fascinating and interesting things I've learned about my field of quality assurance and compliance in general is how much the human element and kind of like psychology plays a part in what we're doing every day and why people might make a decision that they did or understood written words a certain way. And I think it's interesting how different people take the same situation and handle it different ways. Three words that I would use to describe my career journey are unpredicted. I didn't think this is where I was going to end up. Um, Dynamic, because it's always changing. It's um, different every moment, and then impactful because we're out here saving and improving lives.
Awesome. I love the connection you made between the compliance and quality assurance work and psychology, because I think that's a link that most students, most people wouldn't make. Like, you could get a psychology degree and do quality assurance,
Hmm.
in your career. That's really cool. Selena.
Hey, thank you for having me. My name is Selena Espinosa. I am the Director of Community Outreach External Affairs at New Mexico Donor Services. I started my career in journalism. I also have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication with an emphasis in broadcasting. I was a television journalist for a long time and told stories through pictures and really learned how to communicate to people through visuals. I then took that and helped people understand large and broad topics or things that they might have misrepresentations about, which is a lot of the time STEM related fields.
Yep.
Um, in organ donation, it's very science based. So I get to continually research and learn and gather data and understand the science part of things without actually being a doctor, but I have to understand enough to communicate to someone and help them learn and understand that as well. So I take my communication and my visual skills and hopefully translate them into a process that makes sense for the general public. I would say that the most interesting thing I've learned in my career in organ donation is that your liver regenerates. So you can take a part of your liver and transplant that as a living donor into a person, and it'll grow to the size of the capacity that that body needs, but it'll also regenerate inside of your body, which is so interesting. Three words I'd use to describe my career: adventurous. I'm always going on some adventure, learning something new. Um, Visual, I think we all see, especially these days, how fast kind of moving pictures work in the day and age of social media, how brief our attention spans are, and the easiest way, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, video is worth even 1,000,000 words. So it's like you have to use that technology behind those types of things to communicate in a much different aspect. And then just evolving. The nice thing about communication and kind of networking and media is it's always changing. It's never going to be standard or the same. And if you're doing it the same, it's probably not effective.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will tell you guys that it's interesting that you mentioned the liver regeneration, because one of my very, very best friends in the whole world was a live liver donor
Oh, wow.
about 6 or 7 years ago. And she's a physician's assistant, and she actually donated to a friend of hers that she had worked with, and her friend was a nurse practitioner. So it was a really
Oh.
interesting it was interesting to follow her decision-making process in making the choice to be a donor. Like, she got tested, and then she said, and I found out I was a match. And then I had to go through this whole like psychological process about, am I ready to do this? Right? Am I ready to take this risk for myself? Am I ready to take this risk to help save my friend's life? And what if she said, what if my friend makes choices afterwards that sabotage
Hmm.
Or
the
gift.
donation or the
Yeah.
transplant? And I thought that was a really interesting question to have come up in her own process of making the decision to be a donor. So I thought that was super interesting.
So
Very.
All right,
amazing. I
Lou.
love that.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And it was great for me to talk to her through that process.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anybody before that who had done a live donation. And I didn't understand the process really. I didn't know the process, and like how long it took her to recover, and how long it took her friend to recover, and
Yeah.
some of the issues that have happened afterwards. She said my friend has had absolutely no issues, totally healthy, totally happy. She recovered in the time that they expected her to recover. She went back to work, all is well. So I think it's fascinating that you can do live organ donation.
Yeah.
And that most people don't know that until and unless they're presented with a situation where they either know somebody or
Hmm.
they're approached to say, would you be tested to see if you'd be a match? So okay, so Luis is going to introduce himself, and then he's also going to talk about some of the roles of people that weren't able to join us. Um, so he'll let us know a little bit about what those folks do in their roles in New Mexico Donor Services. I think one of the reasons that Luis and I started talking about doing this panel with New Mexico Donor Services was that I think I didn't even know your building was back there when I first went back, right? Um, I've been an organ donor on my driver's license since I got my driver's license. But when I started to get to know you guys and what you do, I was like, holy crap, I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea of like everything, all the moving pieces that are part of the process. And all of the pieces that are part of the process, not just through the actual organ donation, but then all the things that happen afterwards, like,
Hmm.
all the aftercare stuff and all of that. So I think it's a great thing to raise awareness in our young people about donor services um, from two perspectives. One is, please become an organ donor, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the other is there are a ton of STEM related professional roles within donor services that I
Hmm.
don't think any kid knows about. And
Yeah, come work with us.
probably most adults, right? And such cool, God, what an amazing mission to work for, right? And to do work for. So,
Yeah.
all right, Luis, you're up.
Hey, thank you, Karen. Thank you kindly. We certainly do appreciate the opportunity to be here and share, or pull the covers back on organ donation and how it happens and what that means here in New Mexico, right? But first things first, my name is Luis Hernandez. I'm the External Affairs Coordinator here at New Mexico Donor Services, and we our work is to get out and engage with the community to educate them on the power of organ donation, but also to encourage them to become organ donors, to register to be organ donors. And so one of the ways that we do that is by getting out into the community, connecting with business professionals, government officials, community organizations, and really raise awareness and encourage those donor registrations. Right. My background is sales marketing. And I'm non-degreed. I did attend CNM for business administration, but as life would have it, my personal affairs had me going back to work and not finishing out. But I was able to pursue, some business coaching certifications, to really lend myself to supporting the small business community and helping them with their operations. But circling right back to New Mexico Donor Services, it was really a unique opportunity, coming out of community development. I was looking for the next opportunity and had a conversation with Selena, as a matter of fact, and she, educated me on everything that happens within organ donation, and provided an opportunity for me to join the team. And like you, Karen, I too was a registered donor. I had the heart on my driver's license, but I didn't really fully understand everything that happened here, and the way that it happened, right? And still to this day, I'm learning every day something new here, because there's so much that happens. And to sum it up, it's easy for me to just say this phrase, is that it's a miracle.
Mhm.
Transplantation and organ donation is a miracle. A lot happens in a very short period of time to help save someone's life. And there's a lot that goes into it. And so I'm not going to be the only one talking about it. Selena's going to talk about it, and Nat's going to talk about it. We're all going to do this collectively, right? But yeah, here at New Mexico Donor Services, our role, and it's probably best for me to maybe scoop back just a little bit, right? Um, we're we're a nonprofit organization, and we're what we call as a federally designated organ procurement organization. And these are all over the United States, right? We're part of DCI Donor Services, which includes Tennessee Donor Services, Sierra Donor Services, and Selena, you're gonna have to help me out with the tissue and the eye banks.
We have a separate tissue and a separate eye bank. So, but that's it.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Right. And so that's the makeup of who we are. Um, and of course, a good question is what are OPOs, right? That was a new term to me when I came into the field, right? An OPO is an organ procurement organization, and they're federally designated. They're nonprofit organizations that are responsible for making or coordinating the donor process.
Mhm.
So they work with the hospitals, donor families. They work with the transplant centers um, to recover, match, transport organs, and really just making sure that everything happens the way that it needs to. And so for us, education, outreach, collaboration, that's how we hope to continue to honor the legacy of donors, while giving hope to people who are on that registry list.
Yeah. I think one of the most fascinating things I learned after Holly started working there and gave me a little tour, um, I did not know before this that organs are harvested or procured in the hospital, but you guys have your own clinical setup in the back of the building, right? Where you do tissue recovery. And I was like, really? That's so cool. I mean, that's something that's a thing that people wouldn't know about, right? Like
Right.
they don't know the
Yeah.
back end of how things work.
And a really cool job. If you like science, but maybe you don't want to go all the way to being a doctor, you could be a tissue procurement coordinator for us. And what that would do is tissue donors can help heal up to 75 people. And we
Yep.
can recover skin grafts, bone grafts. Something cool about a bone is it just has to be touching for then the body to go in and calcify and repair that bone. So they take a bone graft and will put it into a really bad break, and then that bone's able to heal. Tendons. So say you tear your ACL or your rotator cuff. Mr. Luis is struggling with one of his right now. You would get a donor tendon as opposed to them trying to repair it or putting something foreign in your body. And then your corneas, so we can't transplant the eyeball because we don't know how to transplant the ocular nerve yet, but they take the vascular part of your eye, which is just the clear part that covers your iris, and you can put a cornea into a recipient and help restore the gift of sight. So there's so many cool jobs. We even have birth tissue coordinators who recover placentas that would otherwise be thrown away. And those placentas are then stripped of an outside membrane, and that membrane can make up to 200 healing grafts. And so you're helping heal diabetic wounds or different scar tissue or just things that there's no more tissue there to help the body get a head start in creating new tissue. But that's an actual job that somebody, you get some training for, maybe an associate's degree, maybe not, maybe just a technical certification, and you can come start working in the science field and see if you'd like a career in medicine. It's a great way to start and say, oh, I love this. I want to go on to be an RN or maybe even a transplant doctor. But it's a good career path to see, do I like this? Can I handle, dealing with a donor hero and an actual human body and dissection and all of those things? And obviously we do it in a much different way at Donor Services because we treat each individual as a donor hero, but it's hands-on experience and really fascinating.
And what Selena is describing is like present state organ and tissue donation. Like the first transplant successfully was in 1954 of a kidney in Massachusetts. So this is like a section of medicine and science that is still developing all the time. Now the most common bone marrow donors are from donor heroes that are recovered at locations like Mexico Donor Services. And a lot of people just think, oh, I have to, go to be hospitalized to get bone marrow if I need that because I have cancer. But it's actually our donor heroes that are really filling that need in a lot of ways. And so that who knows what it'll be like in 5 or 10 years. It's only continuing to expand. And so I think it's a really cool industry to be in and to learn and be connected to all these people. You're connected to, everyone in the hospitals, everyone in transplant networks, and it's just a really great network to be a part of.
Yeah, and you think about how the science has developed. You talked about donor heroes being in our facility, but we also bring organs into our facility. So they make kidney pumps, and we're able to take a kidney, put it on a pump, see if that kidney, if one, we could get it maybe even more healthy. Maybe it wasn't accepted automatically for transplant, but we can put it on the pump to see if we can get the health of that kidney up and those numbers up. and then be able to package that pump and think about the logistics on how to get the kidney from here to Boston or from here to California. And
Mhm.
so some of that science-based technology, one, needs improving, and you could be the next person that develops a pump for a heart or maybe intestines or whatever it might be. There are hearts for pumps and lungs, but they could always be improved because organs have a dynamic time frame from being outside of a body, even on a pump, to needing to be transplanted. And that all has to work out very quickly. Like Luis said, it's a miracle every time it happens. But if we're able to improve the science behind that, maybe you don't like working with human tissues or those types of things, but you think about machines and machinery and
Mhm.
solving those types of solutions, that's also a giant need within this industry where you're literally helping to save a life because you created a machine that's then holding that gift to be able to get to a recipient.
Yeah, so now you've also pulled in biomedical engineering and, you know, the interface between engineering and medicine. We have an orthopedic an orthopedic surgeon and a biomedical engineer faculty member at UNM who
Oh, wow.
like collaborate all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fascinating what they work on, you know, the things they work on to improve in that case, improve hand surgery options.
We're just learning about the different things that tissues can do. So like the placenta donations, it used to be just 100 healing grafts, but now they're finding that they can use them for eye surgeries and for different scar tissues when they're doing major surgeries to help with the healing process for that person who's undergoing that. So who knows where that science will go and what we'll eventually be able to use, maybe those stem cells or different healing properties from the different membranes and how it'll take off in that way.
That's really cool. I was fascinated when Holly came home and said you guys had started doing placenta recovery. I was like, that's so cool.
And it'd just be thrown away otherwise. So it's awesome
Yeah.
to be able to
Well,
use it
and
for something good.
it's a piece of the human body, right? That
Yeah.
is responsible for keeping a baby alive for 9 months. So
Yep.
there's so much in that one
Organ.
lump of tissue, right? For lack of a better term.
Mhm.
But like you said, like it's fascinating to think what else we might be able to do with what would otherwise just be thrown out.
Yeah.
All right, I want to ask the first question, kind of first more formal question of the three of you who are here. And you can answer in any order, doesn't matter. When and how did you discover your spark or your motivation to go in the career path that you have chosen? And how did you find that path? Or if you know about like one of the other team members who, you know, you've talked to about what their career path was, and maybe it wasn't a straight line to, you know, most people at 18 or 20 years old are not going to automatically think I want to go work in donor services. They sort of find their way to it.
Mm.
You know, I would think, and because most people don't know about it. um so, you know,
My
what do you
goal
hear from
in
your
life and kind of, yeah, my goal in life and kind of studying was always like news you can use. I wanted to teach people new things. I wanted people to be able to have access to, I don't know, whether it's information or connectivity that makes their life easier. And so from being a journalist, I would get to investigate different things and look into different community partners that were doing different things or ask a question that needed an answer and then be able to follow that trail. Abate very quickly and within a 5 o'clock deadline. But we kind of got there. Then that kind of shifted into the trajectory of I've worked for a police department, I've worked for a commercial real estate builder, but it was always in teaching people something about their community that they either didn't know or that they needed to know to
Mhm.
help make life easier or better. And so at donor services, the nice thing is I get to make lives easier and better by helping to save lives and just telling you about what goes on in our community and what we do and the
Right.
donor heroes that give those gifts. I would say that the there's a lot of people based in what we do behind that science because there is a human giving that gift and it's their legacy. And to be able to
Right.
help tell that person's story and, kind of follow the trajectory of their kidney and where that kidney went, how it got there and who it saved and what that person's doing now. It's really a fun way to communicate that message and then hopefully in turn educate people about organ donation and the science behind it.
And I really love the fact that you guys are very intentional about honoring both the donor families and the recipient families,
Mhm.
or the donors and the recipients, and not just having it be a, okay, the transplant's over, see you later, bye, right? That's not how it works. It's not how any of this works, right? And I was, I was able to attend 2 of your flag raising ceremonies last year, and I just it was so heartwarming to like hear the stories and to see you guys give those families an opportunity, especially the donor families, like an opportunity to truly continue to honor their family member. Um, so it doesn't feel like it's okay, it's over, done, goodbye.
That legacy really continues and you'll hear
It does.
stories. I don't know how about how science-based they are, so your group can kind of figure them out for me, but you'll hear stories of recipients who take on characteristics of their donors. I have a heart recipient that used to hate chocolate. She hated chocolate. She woke up from her surgery and she wanted a chocolate ice cream. Her husband was like, "Put that one back to sleep. That is not my wife. I don't know who that
Oh
is."
my gosh.
But it was like a residual from the donor hero and just how that organ might have muscle memory, if you will. I don't know what else
Yeah.
you would talk about it as, but that some of those traits from hero to recipient are continued. And so that legacy is in complete circle of being able to still be there. Your loved one's still there in a way.
Wow. What an awesome research project that would be.
Yeah. We'll help you with it. Call
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, that is absolutely fascinating to me. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see. How about um what's a barrier that you faced in your career? Doesn't have to be at donor services, but and what advice would you have for others about how to overcome challenges they might encounter when it comes to pursuing a STEM career or a STEM adjacent career?
Don't give up just because you don't end up with a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Math, or that doesn't rule you out for working in STEM fields at all. And every experience that you're getting now in school or volunteer activities or sports or, with your family, with your friends, like that all culminates to real things that you c- you can use. Um, I have been a telemarketer. I have been a janitor, um, and I had my own medical history led me to see a breast cancer surgeon in New Mexico. Thank goodness I didn't end up having breast cancer, but as a result, I just from making that connection ended up with a summer job, just like filing charts and like taking notes for her. And that really helped me understand healthcare a lot better. And it wasn't, beakers or blood or, but just being there and absorbing that experience led me to understand that, I want to do good. I want to do good in this way. I want to be in the healthcare field, in medicine in some way. I don't really have that figured out yet. And um, then I started in plasma because I went and donated plasma and was like, I see that job that that person is doing. I don't have my degree yet, but I think I can do that. And ended up being a phlebotomist and working my way up and becoming a quality manager and an operations manager in plasma and eventually in regulatory affairs and helping a plasma company start up. But it was like a very winding road and I didn't know where it was going until I got to New Mexico Donor Services and I was like, oh, all these things from telemarketing to, being a janitor to, you know, uh, learning about insects in school before my environmental science, degree was ripped away from me. Um, because in quality, quality systems, they are little ecosystems, and it's putting all of these pieces together. Like nothing is a waste that you're doing. And just because it doesn't look like a STEM situation doesn't mean it's not a STEM situation and that it can't be looked at through a STEM lens. And don't be discouraged if you are like Luis and I, and you don't end up with that bachelor's degree that's like, hey, I got a physics degree. That doesn't mean you're ruled out for a STEM job, or a STEM career. And keep that in mind. Like
Yep.
we need people on all different levels with different experiences, because that's what makes our organization the most effective. Is
Yeah.
if we all thought alike, this would not work. We need all cultural backgrounds. We need all these experiences to come together and lean on each other and be one system.
I love that. And I love that you talk about taking such a circuitous route to get where you're at, right? And that's okay. That's like more than okay. I think it's very rare, and students need to know this. Like it's very rare that somebody right out of high school graduation knows exactly what they're going to do and exactly what they're going to have to do to get there, and they do it and they go. Like there are some of those kids for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, we all knew a handful, probably in our own backgrounds, of kids who you were like, oh yeah, that kid's going to go to med school and they're going to be a neurosurgeon, and they go to med school and they become a neurosurgeon, right? But that is rare. It's rare to find somebody who, as a teenager, figures out exactly what they want to do and exactly what their path is going to be. And my initial kind of desire to create these STEM career panels was to kind of highlight that, to like, we could have 4, 6, 8 people on a panel like this. And I don't know that we've had one panelist yet who has been that person who knew from the age of 5, I'm going to be a this, and this is what it's going to take to get there. And they just go do it. So that's what I love. One of the things I really love about these videos is that it highlights that we all have different ways of getting to where we're at now.
I'd say
And then also, if you go into something like, I don't know, dance or whatever, something that you wouldn't think is STEM, that doesn't mean you're ruled out for medical school or dental school or whatever, any of the graduate STEM. Just need to make sure you take those prerequisites. But those also can be summer classes that you take. So yeah, like don't lock yourself in. Sorry,
Yeah.
Selena.
No, I was gonna say kind of similar to that is like my minor, I did it in Spanish thinking it would help me with journalism, which had I studied harder, it might have. But when I but when I got to the point in my career where I knew I didn't want to do TV news anymore, I didn't really have a backup. Had I studied something that I was passionate about, not Spanish, maybe dance at the time, I could have gone and been a dance teacher while I tried to figure out where else I was going to use that communication degree. So don't be afraid to do two vastly different things, because you never know what trajectory you might end up on. And sometimes it's nice to have a backup that is just a passion, right? Just something that fuels your spirit, because it helps not only correlate into that direct pathway, but you might decide you want to run a dance school, which would, I'd need all the other things in my communication and marketing to do that as well. But Spanish did not help my life.
Well, and I think it's also really cool that the 3 of you are on, because it's important, I think, for our students to understand also that there are those like very definitely STEM careers, right? Like your organ and tissue recovery people are clearly immersed in STEM every day. But you guys are all STEM adjacent, right? You're all STEM adjacent, and you have to be STEM literate in order to do your jobs,
Mhm.
right? Selena, you talked about like having to learn about all the things
And I have
related
to
to
do the
transplant.
data analytics behind our registry and where our registrations are lowest or highest, and should I go do more marketing and outreach in those areas. I have to also understand the tech behind all of our social media and the different platforms. And, Luis will tell you about plugging in microphones and all the different things that you do that are all science and technology based that you would have never thought in just
Yeah.
getting a communications degree. All the
Yeah,
algorithms with
absolutely.
social media, oh my Lanta. You could be there
Yeah.
forever. Break the algorithm for me, and
Yeah,
trying to boost our
exactly.
numbers and get that organic content and not have to pay for that paid media placement and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's ask. I'm skipping around questions, but that's okay. I like this question. Tell us about something or someone, a resource, a place, a program, a person that inspired you on your career journey.
I'll start with that one. My background is sales marketing, and I had an opportunity to move with the company to Austin, Texas. And in that sales role, they wanted to move me up to a sales manager position. However, I didn't have any management experience. They sent me to a training program. It was an intensive 3-day training program. And the training program was a little management training, and it was a little motivational speaker training. And at that moment that entered that classroom, I knew that that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to influence people in a positive way, through educating them on certain things. And so that person, or that mentor, is known as Brian Tracy, and he's very prominent in the business motivational arena, right? But that was somebody that kind of put me on that path of sales marketing, that led me to where I'm at today. I didn't intend on um, coming to Donate Life. My most recent background is Chamber of Commerce and Community Development, all nonprofit. Um, I didn't realize uh, how important this was until somebody educated me about it, right? And that person was Selena, right? And so she influenced me to want to be where I'm at today. And so I'm always very grateful for people like Brian Tracy and Selena.
Awesome. Nat, how about you? Do you have a something or a someone that inspired you?
Um, I always wanted to be in healthcare and do good. But growing up, my mom had on our Suburban a don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows you need them here
Uh-huh.
bumper sticker, and she was very pro organ donation. And uh, she passed away unexpectedly in
Mm.
2004 when I was 17.
Mm.
And her passing really impacted me and kind of changed, because I was ending high school, and it kind of threw me cattywampus into college, and like, what am I doing with my life? But that was always kind of like in the back of my mind. And so even as I was doing other things, like plasma donation is good. It helps a lot of people. And I did that for 12 years. I actually applied here 3 different times and got
Wow.
a first interview the first time, and then the second time I didn't get a response to my application, and then the third time I made it all the way here.
Yay.
But that's always been in the back of my mind is, like, my mom's challenge to all of her children was to go do good in the world and to learn something new every day. And I feel like I honor her really well by being here. And so that's not really like a direct answer, but it is a big big thing that shaped me as a person. Um, and yeah, I'm just glad that I ended up here because now I get to, I'm sure many people watching this are kind of like puzzlers, like really love like Sherlock and solving things and uh, really dug into science fair. And that's always been me. And that's what I get to do in quality assurance. And so I'm not there, transplanting a liver. I'm not in the OR, but I am getting to help solve problems to make it easier for them. I'm getting to analyze data to see how we can do it better. I'm trying to figure out what the root cause was that was a barrier to us saving a life.
Mhm.
And that's just really awesome because I get to solve puzzles every day.
That is super cool. And that is definitely a STEM kid, right?
Yeah.
Like STEM,
And then
STEM
I get
kids
to
are
present it. I get to tell people about what I
exactly.
found, like a science fair project. I love it.
Exactly, exactly. It's all the kids who like taking the toaster apart and putting it back together or
Mhm.
without extra parts left over afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that
We
would
knew,
be me. If I tried to take the toaster apart, I would have parts and pieces everywhere. I would not be toasting anything. For sure. Um, what what, if any, barriers have you guys faced in your careers, and what advice would you give to young people as they sort of are entering their careers about facing challenges?
I have a good answer to this one that kind of answers the last question as well. So I've been a female that's worked in many male dominated areas, mainly at the police departments. I worked at the Santa Fe Police Department and the Albuquerque Police Department as their communications director. And also being very young in both of those roles with very senior management or leadership. I was in a leadership role around very senior leadership. And I was blessed to have young female mentors who showed me that those traits that might be considered more feminine or considered younger traits, you use them as assets. I had a lieutenant, her name is Ferris Simmons, who would talk about as a woman, she would walk in uniform, into a very highly escalated scenario as a police officer. And just her presence with that female kind of vibe, yes, she'd have to be direct and yes, she'd have to be stern, but people would respond to her differently. Use that. Like in my job, there are times that I use that feminine energy and am able to either escalate something or de-escalate something. And knowing that that is also a talent is wonderful. Also using that fresh perspective as a young person. You've never looked at this problem before. And the people that have been working with that problem have looked at it over and over and over again. So don't be afraid to say, I know I'm new here, but I see it this way, and use your voice. That is an asset more so than a hindrance. So it's kind of all in the narrative that we tell ourselves. Yes, I'm a young lady in a male dominated field, but those are both assets if I use them to help the team.
That's awesome. I love that.
that is way cool. I would add to that by saying that there's more paths than one. Think of it this way, right? You're going to have to learn how to pivot in life, or be a serial pivot
Pivoter.
person, right? And what that means is that life is never going to go the way that you plan it. Your career, your education is never going to go the way that you plan it. Life happens, and sometimes have to understand that and be able to just move quickly and swiftly in a different direction. And know that, Michael Jordan, you know, um, missed more shots than what he made, right? But he's still number one, right? So you got to keep on trying. You got to keep on, keep on, keep on, and don't give up in the face of adversity, right? There's always going to be a win. You just have to keep on pushing for it.
Yep. And use your resources. I think that that's an important lesson that we all had to learn when we were young, and some of us learned it better than others, some of us not so much. But I think that's something that is important for young people to know too, is that in your career path, like, it's okay to say, I'm not really sure about this. I could use some help,
Hmm.
or I could use a mentor in this situation. I don't know it all yet, right? I need to learn this. Um, and not feeling like you have to know everything when you walk in the door. I think that's one of the fascinating things that I've found with lots of young people, even if they're going into their first internship, right? When my son was offered his first internship, it was between his freshman and sophomore years of college, when you don't know a damn thing about what you're going to be doing right in your career. Like, you may be an engineering major, but you don't know much engineering at that point. But what I found interesting, and I've heard it so much repeatedly since his experience, just because I've been sort of listening for it, is that a lot of young people, when they go into an internship, think they need to know the job before they start. And I was like, the whole point of an internship is to teach you about it, right? You're going into an internship or your first job or even your 22nd job, right, with a lot of foundational knowledge, but you're never going to go into any job knowing that job for that organization, right? And I
Right.
think that's also an important lesson for young people to understand, is that even when we as adults change jobs, we're in a new learning curve every time we change jobs. And that's not a bad thing,
No.
right? That keeps us fresh, that keeps us on our toes. It allows us to use our accumulated knowledge to inform that next job. But we don't have to know it all when we walk in the door.
I feel obligated as the quality manager on here too, to let you know that all of the tests that you're taking where you've had to memorize stuff, or like closed book, like it is not like that in any regulated industry. It is the exact opposite, where
Hmm.
we want you to not assume and to
Mhm.
look it up and do it the right way. So it is always open book, even to our organ recovery coordinators that are in the OR. They're pulling up our policies and our regulations in the OR on their laptop to make sure that we're compliant and that we're doing it the right way, because lives are at stake. But
Right.
even in outside of NMDS, in any regulated industry, from a lab to anything else, they're going to have those SOPs, they're going to have those policies, they're going to have those regulations. And don't go back to that college and high school ingrainment of I have to have it here. In fact, it's way easier if you know that you don't know it, but just know where to find it. So that's like the biggest skill that you can learn, is where do I get the information versus what is the information.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, I'm so glad you shared that. That is like so, it's such an important message, because you're so right. Like, there's never another time in your life after high school or college when you have to have everything memorized. Like, you have to know where to find it, or you have to know who to ask to know where to find things. But oh, you're
and
so
what
right.
reliable sources there are,
Yeah.
like
And
uh,
that's an
Chat
operative word
GPT is
now
good for
too.
a lot of
Yeah.
things, but
Yep.
be careful. So don't lose that when you're learning in college where to find information. That is an invaluable skill.
Yeah.
Um, so
Especially reliable sources, right? No
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wikipedia in the OR.
Please,
There's
please.
not.
That's why we
I
don't let you in the OR, Louise.
yeah. No,
Just
but
kidding.
to Nat's point, it's I relate this back to entrepreneur world, right? Is the number one challenge that most entrepreneurs have is that they don't take action,
Mhm.
because they fall into that pit of not feeling like they are ready, or that they don't know enough to start. And that's absolutely not true. You know, most of the successful entrepreneurs that I know have just started without even having the idea completely fleshed out. They just jump in and take action, and that's certainly one of the best ways to enter into anything, is just to jump in and start doing and start learning.
Yep.
Absolutely. Like if you wrote a paper and the paper was completely wrong, at least then the person reading the paper knows like what you're thinking, versus if you're there with a blank page, that's not progressing you, that's not progressing the situation. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, because you will make a mistake. You might even make a big one, or several big ones, but the goal should not be don't make mistakes. It should be don't make the same mistake twice. Like, okay, I did that, let me not do that again, because now I've
Hmm.
learned and can pivot and can make a different decision the next time.
I love that. All right. I want to sort of just wrap us up with, is there anything that any of you want to share that you have not shared already, or another, or a point that you want to sort of bring home, before as we wrap up the video?
Quality assurance gets a really bad rap because um, we are often finding the mistakes of others. So I think it's important for you to hear that it's actually really cool. And while you can be, and some people in quality assurance are the type that like really enjoy putting other people down and pointing out their mistakes, I always view it as opportunities for improvement for us as a team, for them, for the process. And it's such a great position to be able to build up an organization, yourself, your coworkers, and make a huge difference, because nobody else is standing around and studying those mistakes to be like, well, wait, maybe because Karen, Luis, Selena, and I all read it different ways, maybe that should be rewritten so that it's clearer
Hmm.
that we all were supposed to wear blue shirts today to this panel. You know, and so we weren't really supposed to, but that's just like an example. So I really encourage you to look into like data analytics and quality assurance and compliance, because like I said, you get to solve problems and you can empower so many people and make such a difference, just by using those big brains you have. So solve them puzzles. Join
Awesome.
me. Come over to
Awesome.
quality.
And if you don't have those big brains, then you join a team, right? And I think that's we have over 60 active positions here, um, in our office that make organ donation possible. And so just know that whatever your part is, that it's going to feed into a team that has the overall goal to save lives, just like you do, right? And so in that we all play a part. Maybe we don't actively participate in the whole operation, but you know, that's where we lean on those folks that have that expertise to do the thing that they do, right? And together collectively, we make that miracle happen, right? And so I'll just leave it with that.
I think that's a great place to leave it, for sure. For sure. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be able to publish this video and have people learn about New Mexico Donor Services and about transplantation and all the cool things that you guys do, every day to do good things and bring good works and save people's lives. So thank you so much. And Luis, I'll share the link to the video when it goes up in YouTube, and you guys are welcome to use it however you want to use it, in the future. And thank you again. I will see you guys soon, I'm very sure.
Yes.
Thank you for having us. This was
Yes.
awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you, Karen.